Focus in front. All right, click the links for Odysee and BitChute. Karen Berger. Sounds like she has some issues that she needs to work out with her therapist, and 10 out of 10, I guarantee that she's seen somebody weekly. Because she's a little bit of an istaphobe. Comics are for whoever finds them worth $4, which in the days of manga is an ever-shrinking group of people. And that's for good reason, because it seems like the people who make comics hate about half the country, and all the topic of every single comic is far-left politics. Oh, comics were always about politics. They weren't this far-left and unbalanced. Back in the day, they used to try to present both sides. To writers and editors now in comics, the mainstream comics, that is an inconceivable thought. People don't want to be lectured on pronouns in some escapist story that they paid $4 for. Karen Berger is an idiot who's got some very serious racial issues she needs to work on. Yes, when the country was mostly European, they marketed to that one big audience, which made marketing very easy. Now the country is sort of some balkanized Brazilification, and selling to that one big audience is a thing of the past. It's actually, selling things like comics are much more difficult nowadays because the audience is so balkanized. So comics are going to get smaller because you're selling to the different tribes in America now, some of whom are interested in comics. But you need to sell to each individual market by tribes or by ideology, because if you try to sell to everybody in one story, it just doesn't sell. You cannot please everybody. It doesn't work like that, which makes it hard because stores have footprints and they need to make X amount of dollars per square foot. So selling to one market like that might be a thing of the past. And in fact, comics, mainstream comics, I get the feeling is also a thing of the past. But, you know, it's funny talking about tribalism is that Comicsgate actually isn't selling by ethnicity like the mainstream comics literally are. Comicsgate is selling more by ideology. It's mostly a right-of-center crowd, or if there are moderates or left-of-center people, they're not as far left to be controlling SJWs, which seems to be one of the things of SJWism is authoritarianism. But your origin or religion isn't the issue, isn't as so much an issue like it is with the mainstream, where it is very much an issue. Comicsgate just wants your money and to sell you something that you really enjoy and will talk about and share with other people. And pretty much everyone other than an SJW is welcome. Even people, I think most people are going to tell you that right to your face, that yes, everyone is all welcome. You all have a voice in Comicsgate, where mainstream comics are going to say, no, there's a big segment of the population that is no longer welcome. The segment that is... Karen Berger promises it's not just straight white boy comics anymore. Yeah, that's who's no longer welcome in mainstream comics. So whoever you are, you're welcome to either sell comics in Comicsgate or buy comics in Comicsgate, or just hang out and jump in on the network and do whatever, or do some spin-off where people are doing shows not even associated with comics whatsoever, because they just like the community of normal people who don't have hate on their mind 24/7. Okay, so SJWs always project. So when they call you istaphobic, while their comics are literally hate propaganda. And to be fair, Comicsgate is sold on personality, which SJWs don't have, because people hate them and they hate themselves and they hate each other. And it's just a smarmy, smirking, hate-filled den of snakes who will turn on each other. They would sell their own mothers out if they had to please. In fact, they literally have sold their own parents and children out to please the mob. There was a girl who was deleted by someone, and in her Facebook, she was saying how glad she was to have those people. And her parents were backing her up on it. It's like, it's insane. It's insane. Just, you're listening to people talk about things. You look at them as if they have two heads. Like, it's okay to get mad. It's okay. You don't have to. You can throw off this insane brainwashing. You've just been so deep into brainwashing. It's okay to wash it off and get angry again. So SJWs actually have kind of a tough time selling on social media. because people hate them. They follow them because it's kind of the psychological fear. They don't want to miss out on some kind of new hate-filled gossip, but they don't really like the people, and they don't necessarily want to support them. So when SJWs occasionally do sell comics on Twitter, you're like, you know, the Joe Glass, the Mags Visagio, who's that other guy? Renfamous. Very, very low selling stuff. Or even Kwanzaa. It's like you get a little bit of support at first, and then it starts to drop off when people realize, oh, you're just... like, you're a hate-filled person, inside and out. These people never have a good time. And there's hate-filled people on the right, too, but I think they're having more fun with it than the hate-filled people on the left. Maybe there's more barbecues on our sides. Okay, so comics have never been for one group of people. It was a bunch of Jewish guys who were selling comics to make money. They were just selling to the market that was out there. If the market was Polish, they would sell to the Polish. You get the idea. They're selling to whoever wants to buy their product, and as the country's demographics are shifting, you're going to see probably a lot more Spanish language comics. Though I don't know if comics are huge in Mexico. I have no idea. I don't know if it's going to be English or Spanish, because like selling in Spanish is kind of rough, because then you cut off half the country. You're selling English, it's like, well, most of the Spanish do speak, and I don't know how they're going to work that out. But you're going to have characters that are uniquely Mexican and Central American and South American and stuff like that, which is like, it seems to me like an opening market that kind of is a little bit being overlooked. Not a lot of Latin representation in American comics for some reason. Okay, so comics are sold to whoever the hell wants to buy them, and you can, it's not sold to one people. It's just sold to the people who are in the stores, the audience, the potential audience, but more importantly, the actual audience. It's not the people who say they're interested in something. You don't sell people what they want. You sell people what they'll pay for. There's a big difference between that. People on Twitter say this phrase. They go, I would buy the hell out of that, and let me give you money, that type of thing. Yeah, except they don't really show up for these, pansexual tree comics. It's good in theory, and then, Deadbeats, it's like, it doesn't seem to... Oh, Deadbeats 2 is coming out. I don't know if it has the same people on it or not, but Deadbeats 1, you look at it and it goes, oh, hey, it grossed 50,000. That's pretty decent. It had 50 creators, so they all grossed 1K, which after everything is like, oh, here's your $12. You get the idea. It's a little bit of a weird flex to do something like that. So comics are for everybody. Comics are for the people who want to buy them, for who is available. So she's not saying we're trying to get a larger audience, which would be a positive framing of the statement. It's like saying comics aren't just written by old Jewish guys anymore. Anyone can write them now. It would be insulting because you frame it like the past was negative and the future is something positive, and if you don't like the new future, then you're somehow negative, because you get where I'm going with that. There's ways to positively frame. Comics just aren't for straight black boys anymore. Why would you say that? That's just... Like, even if you didn't mean to insult people, it clearly comes across as insulting. And let me tell you something about Karen Berger. She meant to insult you. She doesn't like you. She doesn't like comics. She got into comics and she didn't know anything about comics. Oh, that's brilliant. What a brilliant move. And then she proceeded to sell a line of comics that nobody bought. And she's still around. I'm guessing she has a wealthy spouse. But whatever. If Berger, Dark Horse, or Polygon, whatever they're whining about, it's kind of deck chairs on the American comic Titanic. Yeah, comics can be written by or sold by anyone who wants them, especially now with crowdfunding. Most people would look at Berger and wonder what is wrong with her anti-white attitude in a commercial setting where that's a big chunk of your potential audience. That's like 60% of American market. And in actuality, it's probably more like 80 or 90%. So it's a weird flex to insult them. You've got to understand the mind of a Berger, and she's got a perfect name, Karen Berger. Don't be a Karen Berger. The holier than thou, cat lady energy, the absolute hatred for European Americans, and maybe it's a male thing too. She doesn't care about consequences, because for her, there won't be any consequences. As long as she attacks a certain demographic, the comic industry doesn't care. And let's be honest here, whatever she's involved with, you're not going to buy it anyway. You probably haven't heard of, I think Zoe Quinn's comic was Vertigo, or was that after Vertigo collapsed? or closed. I don't know if they collapsed or closed voluntarily, or they just got folded into another thing. But I think Zoe Quinn's Vertigo, she did like 6 issues, and it was dog feathers. Her stuff's always going to sell in small numbers. The Preacher, I think, was under them, and it was okay. But I mean, I think it was just okay, but it seemed to have an audience, so somebody thought it. Anyway, Karen Berger is a colossal jerk. Saying comics are for everybody is not the same as saying comics aren't just for straight Japanese boys anymore. Everybody knows what her deal is. Whatever she's in, she's going to use it to spread hatred and sow dissent. It's like, well, just SJWs can't help themselves. Whatever they're in, they will burn it down. So Demon Slayer manga outsold the entire United States comic industry. Why? Because it's not infested with people like Berger or Mark Waid who, you know, try to interfere with someone else's right to sell comics. That's insane. That's like, you need to come to Jesus moment, or just align your chakras or something. And there are a lot of idiots in the mainstream comics. They're happy to burn it down as long as they're head asshole sort of thing. They call her the most important figure in American mainstream comics, which is a lot of qualifiers, and it still turns out to be a lie. You're the most important train engineer on a train that is headed for a bridge that is out. She got into comics without reading comics, which sounds about right. She fell in love with the medium as a tool of propaganda. If you understand the distinction, she didn't fall in love with comics, or what better medium to spread propaganda? Yeah, they're called books. She fell in love with it as a way to get her message out. And she wasn't into male power fantasies, so if you go read some of the Vertigo line, I read one called User. It was about everyday life, and it was just, it went 3 issues, because it was about some angry 20-year-old doing something. So the Vertigo line was for 10 years before it was presumably canceled for lack of sales. And I looked through a few of them. Absolute dog poop goes for short runs. They're about the quirky 25-year-old girls who all still act like they're 11. And the white guys are all dumb and evil. And all the POCs turn out to be like absolute purse puppies. Like, literally, if you see white in one of those comics, it's bad. And if you see black, you know he's going to be the soulful saint, Mary Sue. Comics in the totality is manga. Then American comics has a shrinking mainstream, and then there's a growing indie movement. Well, you know, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Comicsgate, and a bunch of other independent stuff. So focusing on mainstream American comics is focusing on the worst selling part of the comics industry. Karen Berger is important in the sense that she's helping to destroy comics and push customers away. I'll use that for a title. Under the Polygon tweet on Twitter, 90% of it is just people talking about manga, their favorite mangas, and how it's just kicking the hell out of American comics, and, you know, rightfully so. And a few are mentioning Comicsgate. Karen Berger is so important, but can she sell? If she can find a market for breastless fuzz bumper comics, hey, great, good for her, knock yourself out. But the mainstream is shrinking, and manga, and even Comicsgate is growing. Comicsgate is small, but it is growing. It would be great if the mainstream wasn't controlled by actual commies, but it is, and there's no getting around that. That ship has sailed. There's no saving mainstream comics, or Hollywood for that matter. If you want your own pop culture, you literally have to make it your own. But the white pill on that is social media is free, and with a cell phone, you can get started, you can grow your audience, you can form a network, then try to sell them something. If they don't want it, you try to sell them something else. It's as easy as that. And like, whatever you do, don't do this kind of stuff. That's insane. Hey, if this, I don't know what's the name of this, Ianu, the hero of something, 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 Child of Wonder. Great, that's original. If that sells, go for it. I know it's not going to sell, and you know it's not going to sell. There's 0% chance of that selling, which means it'll probably get made into a Marvel movie. That's how it works. Oh, dog. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, guys. I'll see you all next episode.